How come I don't see it live on here?
It's leaving.
Because you don't know how to use Facebook, dog.
Yeah, dude. What's up,
refresh
bro?
the page, Brad, and you should see it.
So this is called Facebook.
Wait, start. You should start more simply with this.
Okay, this is a computer. You're in a web browser.
It's on the internet.
Oh look, we announced shows too.
Oh, we're live in Los Angeles.
There we go.
Okay, now I can see it.
Oh, there's us. Oh, there's comments. So you can actually see the
That's
comments.
very meta.
Give us a heads up if there's anything that we should
Okay.
answer or hear about.
This one says, Dave, you look very handsome.
And by Dave,
I always say
Dave
That's actually Chester.
They
Oh, I misread that. It
Yeah,
says
they were I think they were talking about Chester.
Yeah.
Brad, if you ever go on any of my social media, you just will get so sick of that.
That's why I stopped. Actually, that's why
it's
I
just
stopped.
all day long.
It's all-
Dave,
it's all
you're
Chester,
really
though.
good looking.
That's Chester on my
Yeah.
social media. Just
That's why I stopped.
Say
sharing
anything
it
to
on
me.
Social media.
You know what's funny about our band
It's
is that
impressive.
is that like a lot of stuff goes out to the public without anybody else in the band knowing that it's happening. So like whether it's pictures or weird shit that we say on social media or actually the like LPU what is this? What do you call this?
welcome letter.
The welcome
The
letter.
letter.
The LPU welcome letter. I literally saw this, Dave. You wrote this
That's
like
right, I wrote
on behalf of the band, and I saw it like after it got printed.
Does that make you nervous? Not this. Don't
Why
mind
is
the-
your
Don't mind
glasses?
the Snapchat.
Did you do the
Recording
border and
glasses.
everything? Did you do the border?
I did. I kind of tried to make it look cute.
It's very cute.
Oh, the little lines.
I like
I
it.
was just talking. Okay, can I talk about this for a second?
Yeah.
This is a great segue, guys. Well done. Into the
Super
LPU.
cute.
This
This
is like
year's
the Linkin
LPU
Park
stuff.
The Linkin Park view.
Forget all that stuff. I don't even know if you can see it, but that's all second rate next to this, which is a handwritten letter by myself to you, the LPUers of this year. One thing I was just talking about earlier.
I'm messing it all up.
I don't write anymore ever.
What is that?
Handwrite?
Are you filming me?
And as I was writing this, it was obviously 2 pages. Brad, you're going to want to pay attention to this. Trust me, it was an awesome payoff. By the time you get to the back, my hand is getting like literally exhausted. And so it starts looking like wavier and just kind of a little bit crazier, and my writing's kind of crap to begin with. Then, in addition, to your point, we were talking about this with Lorenzo. They printed it to make it look like a notebook paper. So not only do you have the crazy of what my writing's doing, but
Not
now the
on the
lines, it doesn't even go on the lines. They didn't write it on line
I
paper.
noticed that. Like I was like, wow, Dave writes really
Dave
weird.
doesn't
weird
give
on
a shit about the rules of writing, like
Yeah, dude.
right on the
I
lines.
thought no, I literally thought that's how you write. Like you're that's your thing is you write like a millimeter or two above the blue line.
Sometimes
You
right
don't write
through the
like,
line,
right through the
sometimes
line.
on the line.
You don't
No,
even care.
it's
It's
just
how-
about the rules of the paper.
Is how. No, I guess it has nothing to do with the lines. I was going to say the fact that it even is kind of in the lines is
I think
impressive for
your
whoever
brain tells you
formatted
that
this.
it's trying to be in the lines, but it's not.
Dude, I'm curious, how are you gonna where are you gonna find the time to write a personalized letter to each person in the LPU?
Just rewrite that thing over and over again.
Well,
I
he was saying
wrote,
his hand got really tired.
yeah.
But you got to work up
Was
to
this
it.
the only time you've written
You get-
something on a paper?
That's what I was
like, all
thinking.
year? Because
With the-
someone asked you to do it?
With the exception of the occasional like birthday card
Yeah.
to the wife or
And it
That's
just
what I
says
got
happy
out of it.
birthday, I love you.
yeah. I'm a little better than that, but not much. I write. Well, she's gonna be mad at me that I write way more to the LPU.
Oh my
Sorry.
gosh.
LPU is 16, so like she's getting his or her driver's license this year, right?
Dude.
Getting a little more independence. and
Well, it
freedom.
depends on when is the LPU grandfathered into the new, like, isn't there a new law? Doesn't it have
Oh,
to be
did it
18?
change? Okay.
Well,
So the LPU might have to be 18 before it can get its
So
driver's
maybe the
license.
LPU has a learner's permit.
It has a learner's permit. It can only drive
Dave, this
With
was
with
your
a
idea, wasn't
licensed
it was.
This was
adult
your idea.
in the passenger seat.
These were Dave's idea, obviously. Soccer.
The blanket's a little
Soccer
small.
scarves. Yeah.
Well, it's my idea because only my shoulders get cold.
Dave's like, can we get an LPU shawl, like a little granny shawl?
Yeah, like a little blankie.
An LPU doily.
A movie theater blanket.
Is that coming in the future?
Belt.
So we're here in the studio.
We are in the studio.
We're in the studio.
Great segue, Brad.
So how are you feeling about the music, Chester?
I love it. It's really interesting for me because, we've been working with a really great group of writers, collaborators on this record, which is something that's been different. And so, with a number of the songs, I loved the songs, and then I was like, oh, I get to go sing these. You know what I mean? So it's like, I felt like I became a fan of some of the music before it became mine, to a certain degree.
It's definitely yours.
And then
You're definitely owning.
no, I'm saying, and then it was like, holy crap! Like, how do they know what I'm going? Like, how is this song about? Like, this song's about my life, and that was even more interesting to me because I related to it on such a different level, more so than if it came from me. Because if it comes from me, like if I sit down and write a lyric, then I kind of like really personalize it, and then I try to unpersonalize it to make it more universal.
Mm-hmm.
And so and some of these songs have come to me with lyrics already down from a session that I wasn't in, maybe the day before or whatever, and it's personalized to me already.
Well, we were right. I mean, most of those cases, we've talked about this work, most of those cases, like we had you in mind, like we were comparing, I remember, what is it? I remember one of the songs with John, where it was like, comparing the situation with, I think it was like your family, like your relative, and then like all I remember is we were saying like, this is so Chester, like this is like what's going on in the song is like, we got into your headspace, we tried to estimate it, and then the true test is like, okay, I feel like Chester at this moment is feeling like things are out of control, and he wants to like rein them in, but the more he tries to force life to be a certain way, the more it's just like obviously just like explodes, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, so we write this thing, and it's like rough, it's like a rough, and whatever, we hand it to you. I sang, like they sang the little rough demo, and whatever, we hang it to you. And I don't say this, like when we do that sometimes, I'll go, like, what do you think? And I'm thinking in my mind, like, is he relating? Like, did we get it? Is it like his
Yeah,
thing?
I swear. And like, even like I'd play some stuff for Talinda, and I go, what do you think of the song? And she'd be like, did you write these lyrics? And I'm like, no. She's like, you're lying to me. I'm like, no, seriously, like, I honestly didn't have anything to do with this one. I came in, and I listened to it, and I was like, I love it. Like, this is freaky. And she still doesn't believe me. She doesn't believe, like, to this day that, like, I didn't have my hands in certain songs lyrically. And I really, like, that part trips me out because, you know, I had a similar conversation with a friend of mine's son. A friend of mine passed away recently, and I was talking with the son, and we were talking about music, and we were talking about, like, you know, life and all this good stuff. And I played him some stuff. I played him some new music, and he's crying at points. He's like laughing out loud at points, not because the music's funny, but because literally he's like, I don't know how you guys are getting into my head. Like everything, every time I hear you guys, and it feels like you're tapping into right where I'm at in life, and particularly on this new stuff. What's going on in his world right now, like, he had the same experience that I had, which is like, how are you doing this? Like, how do you guys get in there and do this? And so there's been some really special moments, and it actually made it much more personal for me than, I don't know, a lot of the songs we've been doing over the last few records. Like, because it already starts off like, I feel like it is, you know, like,
well,
the last time I had that feeling was with Breaking the Habit, where I was like, dude, Mike, you can't tell me that this isn't my life. And I mean, obviously, like, you know, my ego is always pointing all the roads come to right here. But at the same time, it's like, I related to it so much that it was hard for me to even perform the song. And that was the case with a lot of these songs, you know, and not, it just, I got so into my, like, what I wanted to pull out. I almost felt like I had to be in there by myself sometimes. Like I had to be in there by myself so I could just experience the emotion that I wanted to capture, because a lot of it was hard. And so, I don't know, man. It
Well,
just
I
was
wanted
really crazy.
just to give, because I know that like since there are people watching and everything, I want to kind of give a little bit of context for the process of
Who's watching us right now?
those guys over there.
Dude, you're paranoid.
Dude, Lorenzo.
Hey Lorenzo, can
Lorenzo's
you just let
watching
him
this.
know that you're there?
Hey,
Okay,
Brad.
so seriously, so when we started the process out, it was I know, like I totally like. It's not even funny.
He's
Why do
going
you
to
do
thunder.
that?
It is funny, Brad. There should be some sort of a no shtick rule, because Brad does shtick.
He only does shtick, and I should know.
I'm gonna
better.
cut you off now, and I'm gonna throw it at Brad though, because I want to know what Brad's best part of the album or best memory so far is of the album.
You can't say
I can't
this
say right
question
now.
to Dave.
And
can't
shtick,
say right now.
shtick is acceptable, although highly frowned upon.
I'm gonna rate your answer.
Man, you want me to pick a moment?
It can
Yeah.
be sincere if you've got it in you, or it
I
can
just
be.
feel like there was such an innocence kind of to writing these songs, and certainly like the way we approached these songs was totally different. And there's a bunch of moments that stand out. I think like just meeting some of the folks that we've collaborated with, like who are basically like, it's really weird to meet someone that you've never spent any time with, and then you're automatically like, the way we approached these songs was like as songs, obviously, so words and emotions first, and then the music obviously grew out of that. And so to sit in a room with someone who you're just meeting and basically like be as vulnerable as possible, like to me that was like super special. And actually, like I feel like maybe some of the collaborators don't feel this way about me, but I actually feel like we're friends. Because like
Which is rare for you, right?
which is rare for me to make friends. I feel like we made friends, and I just feel like you can hear it in the music. And I'm definitely happy to like share some moments that stand out in my mind. I just, if you'll indulge me, like I wanted to just kind of stay on what you were.
You know, it's interesting though. Like I remember coming in, and we'd be with the writer, and it was my first time meeting this person, and a lot of times it was like the first time they were in the studio or the room with any of us, and so we come in and it's like making small talk, and really like the first question is, dude, what's up, man? How's your day going?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, it's good. You know, traffic sucked. Blah blah blah. You know, like I'm kind of hungry. You know, I worked out today or whatever, and like you go through like the little small talk things, like the weather's nice, you know, or it's cold today for some reason. It's like you go through like the typical stuff, and then I remember points where I'd go before we start, because I knew we were about to get ready to write, and I'd be like, "Do you guys really want to know what's going on?" And I was like, "Yeah," and all of a sudden it was like some really serious shit would come out, and then it was like we should write about that.
But that
And
that
that
was
was kinda
going
like-
on right there is that was an experienced, like you, by the time you were doing that, we were a few months in, because in the beginning, the first session that I had, we were coming off tour last year, and I had a session with Justin Parker. And the reason we had set that up is because he wrote on Lana Del Rey's Born to Die record. He'd done a bunch of other cool stuff that I liked. And I was like, cool, I'd love to meet this guy and see how he approaches writing, like learn about what that means.
Did
And
you
when
do
we
that one in the UK?
Yeah, I stopped in London at
Yeah.
the end, we played our last show, the last tour. I went to London for 2 days, and I wrote with Justin for a day, and I wrote with this guy named Egg White for 2 days. And Justin, when I met with him, it was the first one I've ever done like that. So I sat with him and I was like, okay, like, pardon my ignorance, but like I literally don't know what you do. Like I write songs, we write songs. Like we write songs as a band, we write songs as individuals. Like sometimes it's me and Brad, and we do it get it really far that way, and then we bring it to the guys and say, okay, this is the song. Sometimes we get a little piece of a song, but we've always got our thing, right? So I was like,
Right.
haven't you done like those pop writer things? Haven't you done those like alternative, like where you get in with an artist and work with them on a lot of songs at once? Like, and he, any musician, like they've written their own solo stuff back when they were younger, whatever, or even at this point. So I was like trying to pick his brain about what people do, like how it's done, and a lot of it obviously was like really familiar. But I remember leaving that day, like at the very end of the day, I was like, okay, so do we record it? Like, what do we do? And he's like, no. He's like, I think we've got a good song. Like, let's just play it on piano and sing it into the phone, and that's what you'll leave with. And I was like, fucking what? Because I'm so used to like recording it, like getting in front of a proper mic and singing it down and starting to put together a track, which is like a more, in terms of for you guys, like that's
a Linkin Park thing.
That's been my experience, because I have to then take that thing and present it to you and have you understand like this is what the song is supposed to kind of sound like, at least first iteration. Like his thing is like, no, I don't mess around with sounds. Like sounds is a whole different thing. I just want to have a good song. And that taught me right from like day one. I was like, oh, this is all about the content. This is all about like the actual words and the melodies. And you get all the other stuff is like not in the way to distract you. And so I think where I was coming from is what you said about like coming in and being like, hey, like you really want to know what's on my mind? Like that's a more experienced, like when we got, 4 or 5 months into the process, then you knew that like, I don't want to come in today and write about like, let's say, Mike has an idea for like a song that's going to be about like, I don't know, like, let's say it's a happy song, and I don't feel happy, like I have a lot of shit on my mind, like I better let everyone know like where I'm at like right now, and maybe that'll, because at least we have context then for like what we're working with in terms of like what kind of song it's going to be.
It's also crazy, like when I think back over like the last year of where I was at. I mean, where are we at? November right now?
Yeah.
Where I was at in November of last year and where I'm at now, it's like two different lives. You know what I mean? So like last year in November, I was miserable. I hated life. This year in November, like I love it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and like the people are the same people in my life. Like for the most part, it's just so many different things have happened, and so many different. I mean, I can't even get. If I got into it, you guys would crap your pants. Like
They'd crap their computers.
They would crap my pants.
Crap their computers.
Your computers would die. It's life just doesn't ever have any shortage of things to throw at you, and like I feel like this record's got it all on there. It's like it's the process of doing this record has been like for me like scraping out an infected wound. You know what I mean? And then having to like rehab it, and then like having to like grow new parts and like transplant things, and like it's just been nonstop life. And last year I couldn't handle life as it was coming at me. It was like it was overwhelming. And like Mike was saying, I would try to just be like, no, like turn the ship into a different direction. But that's just not the way it goes. Like you kind of just have to roll with it. Right? And so, it's just crazy. It's crazy. Like it's crazy the process that's happened, but also, we did an exercise where we wrote down like all the stuff that's happened in all of our lives over the last year. And dude,
it's heavy, right?
Really sad and really heavy. And it's like people always ask like, dude, like, so like, what do you guys like? What inspires you anymore? And it's like, what doesn't?
Yeah.
I mean, are you alive? Like crap. Just because you're in Linkin Park doesn't mean things are like always coming up roses, and it goes for all of us. And so like that lesson that you had in that first trip into the studio really opened your eyes, and because it opened your eyes, and because you're in like literally so much of the process, like 99.9% of the process, it allowed that to be that set up the format. Okay, now we get like what Rick said 7 years ago when we went in. He was like, no, like focus on the melodies and the lyrics. And we're just like, yeah, that's a great idea.
Totally gonna do that.
We're gonna like get there
On the next song.
tomorrow, and like tomorrow never
five,
comes.
6, 7 years later.
By the way, tomorrow never comes. It's always right now, right? And so it's just like we got there, but not because of any epiphany that we had. It was more of by this process of working with other people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, that's how you do that, and that's I think what we set out when we decided to work with collaborators or outside writers was how can we improve our process or grow our tools, and like that's exactly what we got out of it. And by doing so, like then we really were able to just unfold all this life that was happening in all of our respective lives and kind of put it all out there. And as a result, like I would come in and go, holy crap, like this song's about me, and how like it's like you guys are psychic, or other people who have listened to stuff that we played them are going, oh my gosh, this like means like it's hitting me here, and it became its own thing. It didn't become. It's not even. We've had people come in and say there's no genre, like there's no. It just is. Like that's the biggest compliment I've ever gotten from somebody. It was like, I don't know what to call it. It just is. It sits so well in their perspective of what they want to hear in music and what touches them that like it's cracking all those codes. And that's not what we set out to do. We just wanted to write raw, honest music, and I think that's like where we got. We just wrote an album that's really honest and raw, and focused on putting that in there, putting those elements into the track.
Because this record was written as songs, this body of work is people use the word record sometimes to mean a song and sometimes to mean an album. So because we wrote songs first and a lot of them were melody and lyric based, I feel like the strength of most of these, for me at least, really wound up being inextricably tied to the strength of the vocal performance. So like, right? So, and like, I had songs where I was like, I love this song,
Not the
right?
bass performance. Is that what you're...
Is there bass on it?
He's talking about your vocal performance.
I hear the bass like almost like the human voice. Like that's how much it speaks to me. So I had songs where I was like, I love this. This is one of my favorites. And really it came down to the vocals. And some of the vocals on these songs are, I think, the best I've heard certainly both of you perform. So I was just going to...
Dude, he's like steps up his game.
I was going to ask, like, aside from some of what we've covered, like, really, I want to know, like, what about the process enabled both of you to, like, go to a deeper place, or just the power in what I'm hearing as a listener in terms of the vocals? And that actually, to answer your question, Dave, like, my favorite moments, and I can go through anecdotes, but they're all basically either hearing a vocal, like that once it's recorded and actually hearing it back really for the first time, or the spark of writing a song. Like, both of those have so much magic for me, and like, there's just been, for me, those have been the most exciting moments of like, either the song comes out of nowhere, or I hear it being sung, and I'm like, holy crap, that's way better than anything I've ever heard. So I really am curious for you guys, like, what about this process was different, like, vocally? Like, why is it so different than, because I think people are going to hear that when they hear the songs, they're going to be like, this vocally doesn't sound like anything I've heard from you guys. Yeah. And it's like, where is that coming from?
I think from my experience, I've always done vocals with Mike. It's always been like me and Mike in a room. And this time I was like, let's try to work with vocal producers who have no experience working with either one of us, and who don't have like a predisposition of like what's going on with us, or like how our voices even sound. Because
are we talking about the bass right now, or are we actually talking about real vocals?
Well, clearly, the bass speaks to you in that way, so that it's in general all the vocal performances.
Why would you say real vocals?
But like, I think that was for me like one of the things that was that allowed me to kind of explore the studio space a little bit more in there is that it was a lot of times it was like me and Emily, and you know, Emily, I would sing a certain way, and she would say, "Ooh, I don't like that. I don't like that thing," and I'd be like, "Oh, that's interesting because I've done that so many times." You know, and so I would be like, "Oh, cool! Like I want to do something different," you know, or whatever, or it just brought a different outside perspective, and then we had it wasn't just Emily all the time. We worked with Emily Wright on some vocals. We worked with Andrew Belupi on some vocals, and they both had like their own preconceived ideas of how we were going to sing and perform, and like they didn't realize how. I think what our range was. You know what I'm saying? It's like when we started singing in certain ways, it was like, ooh, you haven't done like that. You've never sung anything like that before. And I think the music also is more. It's more soulful, and in some cases, even more. It's even like the sexiest record that we've written because like there's an element to it that is kind of unhithered and unchained a little bit, and then I think, you know, as we got near the end of the process, or as we've gotten kind of closer to where we are now we can go back in and do the touch-ups, and it's me and Mike in a room, and it's like, okay, like overall we like the vibe of this, but it's almost too much. Let's pull it back a little bit, and then it kind of feels more like us. As opposed to like a variation of us, but it still keeps it still has kept that original kind of essence, but lost a little bit of the over performance, you know what I mean? And so I think that for me was one of the things that really helped out, and it made it different.
And for you?
I was thinking when you said that, like since we did the vocals were done first, right? Basically, right? Like the song was the vocals.
Yeah, and we had vocals, like finished vocals recorded a lot of times before we had a clue what we were gonna do.
Right. We forget we've been doing this. We've been on this album for so long that we forget how different it was from when we started. Like where we were before we started was we write this way, and now we've been doing this for so long that it's completely different. Like we had time
to know the
song and like to emotionally like know what we were writing about, know what we were like when I remember I started one of the songs specifically writing it to my kids. Right? That was like a whole new ball game. And I'm like, I gotta write this song. Like the idea was this thing, like my kid is so strong-willed and so intense and can be such a handful, and I want to write a song for them. And like when I got in the booth to sing the song, and the clarity about what the song is about is in my head, and all I have to do is like picture them sitting there. Like the vocal is entirely different than when you're like thinking about some esoteric, like if it's complicated in that way or it's about something else like that, like I'm just singing a different way. And this was a whole other thing.
And that's what's cool is like normally in the studio we're writing lyrics as we're coming up with melodies over a track that's been built. That's kind of the track that dictates the emotion that comes out of us. And then it's kind of like, okay, we recorded like a good vocal, I guess, to that song. And then I kind of have to like, then over time, like always feel like a year into the touring where like now I've got the song down, like I'm really singing it like really the way I would love to have sang it then, but because now I've sat with the song that long.
Yeah.
Or I've sang it 25 times and I know the words. Like, this time around, like, we actually knew the songs before we came in. We knew the songs well enough because the melodies we liked enough, they stuck in our head, and the lyrics meant enough to us that they resonated with us and they stick. And then, the lyrics are there just as a safety net, but really, I don't think I really looked at the lyrics very often.
We had days where I remember we were like you said, it'd be like, I remember you'd be in the booth and like Andrew would be recording, and I'd be sitting kind of like off to the side. And I remember when you couldn't hear me say this, but I'd say to Andrew, "Hey, he keeps singing that line wrong because he's not reading it; he's just singing it. So like, at some point you'll need to like correct him so that he sings that line with the right words. Not because we changed the words, but just because you were hearing it a different way and you kept singing it somewhere. And we would say, okay, you've got a bunch of takes of you singing it this way, and now like the other words, the other option on the words are this. Like really gently, and it was like the other option, not like this is actually the real words are X, Y, Z.
And it was always like I remember that, and I'd be like. And I knew as I was doing it, I was like, okay, but I don't want to like stop the vibe to like go like change now to then to the, like, you know what I mean? Or
the words you were naturally singing might have been, in some cases, it's like, oh, that's a better line anyway, let's just go with that. It just
feels better anyways. But that was like a big deal because when you get, for me, like when I'm in there and I can just like sing it from here instead of like focusing on up here, it gets me to that place where I always say, like on stage, like the last thing you want me to do is be thinking. I know it sounds strange, but like it's a level of consciousness when you know something like it's part of you. Then, when you watch Joe Bonamassa play guitar, he's not like, it's an extension of him, right? And so like, he's an exceptional guitar player, and
oh, Dave. Okay, you're watching Dave play.
And just like when you watch, when you go see your favorite band, and it's just like you see Tom Morello up there, just like with his fingers flying all over the guitar. He's not thinking; he's just being. Right?
I know that guy.
And so I had to pull it back into like the place where you knew.
Thank you for that.
And so, but like at the same time, like that's where I like to be, and that's where I eventually get to after we've made a record. Now it's like I'm in that place in the studio, and like there's been like little tweaky things where it's like, okay, I know I'm keep getting this line wrong, but I'm not going to stop and like get myself out of that place. I'm just going to keep going through because I know we can go back and hit that again. It brings out a performance that's so much more. It's a level of consciousness. There's not a lot of thinking going on, and it's just all from this space of being. And there's a difference in those performances, and I think that's when people listen, not knowing the technical stuff of like, okay, well, we're using this mic, and it's in this room, the lights are this way, like we have a different vocal producer in here for these songs. Like that stuff is like interesting, but really what makes them special and what makes them sound like that's you. I played some stuff back for people like, is that you singing? Yeah, I mean, I actually sing, like I don't just yell at people typically. And so like but there's a different tone and a different feeling that comes out of that when you're in there as a vocalist, like,
Rob and Dave too, like, what do you each think is,
and Brad.
Sure, I'll answer my own question. What do you think is going to be the most surprising thing for people when they hear any of these songs?
I don't want to.
Or what was the most surprising to you, even? Like, or does it just?
Well, I think just to kind of like jump on where Chester left off. I mean, the vocals for me, the performances from both Chester and Mike blew me away from the first time we got some of those back. It was like a whole other. It's a whole evolution. So it doesn't even like. You can hear where it left off, but it transcended to a whole other place. And then from that first song to go through the whole process and go into areas when I was shocked by some of the stuff. Like I heard certain stuff and I was like, can we like do that? Like is that like what does that mean? Like it just like makes your kind of like spins your brain for a second, and then after like sitting with it for a minute, like then it like comes alive. And obviously like that was from the beginning of the process, and now the stuff is kind of like has more production element and all that other stuff around it, but it connects emotionally in a way that I don't think that we've ever connected before. And I think that comes from us internally connecting with one another more than we've ever connected. And that's one of the great things. That's one of the things I love about this band is that we're like a family that's evolved over time. We've been on tours together, been all around the world together. We've had moments where we're like can't wait to get home and like go our separate ways. We've had moments where we can't wait to see each other and everything in between. And so like on this record, I think Chester, you were talking about, like a lot of times the songs were like revealing stuff about what was happening in our lives before we actually even knew that those things were happening.
Mm-hmm.
So like they're revealing like we're more like there's more vulnerable expression in the lyrics, and like looking back and going, oh yeah, well we have actually been talking a lot more, like talking about what's going on in our personal lives in a way we haven't done with each other before, because usually it's like come into the studio, get to work, and then like once we're tired and done with the day, it's like, oh, like what's going on, and then it's not the same. Whereas this time, like we would sometimes spend a couple hours in the studio just talking about what's going on in our lives, and then how that in turn influenced the music. Because sometimes we'd leave the room and Brad and Mike would be left there, and then one of the collaborators would come in, and then like that kind of essence of that song would be birthed in that. And a lot of times like that song would pick up on nuances and things that we didn't even know in the conversation. Then it would like click, at least for me later.
Hi, Brad. I think for me, one of the things that I find really interesting and cool with this process is actually that it goes back at this point like a year and a half or so at least. I remember we were finishing the touring cycle for the hunting party in Europe, and at that point I think we were all pretty ready just for a little bit of a rest and a changing of gears. And I remember a conversation that Mike and I were having where I was just at the point where I was starting to think about what the next record might be, or where it might go, or what it might sound like, but not really having any ideas apart from starting to wonder. And especially after doing the hunting party and touring it, which was a heavier record, it's kind of like, well, where do we go from here? Like, what might be fun? What would be exciting? What would make me interested in the new music? I was at like that stage, and when me and Mike started talking about it, Mike was like, "Yeah, I've got some ideas. I've got some writing stuff set up with some different guys here at the end of this tour." Like, you're probably like 9 months ahead of me, essentially, at that stage of where your thought process was. And so I was like, okay, great, like awesome, because Mike's obviously been thinking about it. He's got some ideas. Love to see where it goes. And then sitting at this point now, I think it's so, I just think it's really cool, and I really appreciate the fact that this record notwithstanding, I feel like every time we've done a record, there's been a way for me that I've been challenged early on with it being different, and that has always been exciting, and that's always breathed fresh air into my approach to what we're doing. Kept it fresh and creative and fun and energetic and just youthful, and all the aspects of music that I've always loved that are like the opposite of staleness and just kind of like a job. Like that, it's breathed that life into it. Like that's why I think like being in a band is still a job in the sense that there's work to be done. But as far as jobs go, it's the best one you can get. I'm pretty convinced of that. And it's, especially if it can continue to be creative and find ways to like have myself be constantly challenged and active, like thinking. And I was like at a certain point about a month ago or so, I was like, wow, this record again for me has done that. Like it pushed me and challenged me, but I love where it's at. I feel like it's super different than anything we've done. I'm really pumped about it. Can't wait to play these songs live, and it's crazy that we're at a stage now where it's actually going to be close to other people having readily available access to it.
Yeah, I've kind of wondered, like, I have these kind of like fantasies about like how would people react if this was the first time they'd ever heard us?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if this was our first record, like what would the response be? Because it's so, like, it touches on all the things that we've already been talking about, but like it's a departure from, I think, what anybody would be expecting. Like, and we're pretty good at like throwing curveballs at like our fan base. But you know, usually when you are playing a different game, people don't expect baseball to be like football, right? So it's like they expect a completely different game. But like when you're talking about the same group of guys who've been doing stuff for, and this is our 7th record, I'm always really kind of in awe of how we've been able to kind of back up our talk of like that we're not bound by a certain style or like genre, that like our thing is like writing music that is interesting to us and what we're into now. And I think this is a perfect example of that. You know, and it's not just like, okay, like we wanted to figure out like how to be hard, like heavy without using heavy guitars. Like it's not like that 1,000 Suns experience where we're like in there just trying to see where we could go sonically. Like this is really much that began purely about the songs and purely about the melodies and lyrics like we've been talking about, and then letting those dictate the track. And so, but somehow we've still managed to take these songs that even when we, like, a lot of these songs, like I sang literally over just like a guitar, like an acoustic guitar, or like a piano. There was nothing else. And so when I'm in there singing that way, there's a vibe that's set up with that sound, and then the track is built around it. And so all of a sudden, like, there's these amazing sounds and these great things that are coming out of the song sonically, but they didn't determine what the song was going to sound like and determine the way, the vibe of the lyrics and everything else. So it created this like really interesting dynamic between the music and the melodies and words that I feel really complement each other in a way that we haven't kind of ever had the experience doing before, and so that feels new as well.
Hey, are we doing like a Facebook Live thing today? Someone said that. Should we wrap this up and turn it on?
And remember when we were like
on?
30 minutes? It's gonna be a long time. We've been doing this for like 40.
That's funny.
It's been awesome so far. I know.
You gotta
I gotta use the lube.
The loo.
Bathroom breaks are acceptable.
We did want to talk about LP16 a little bit. It's coming soon. It's not going to be out just yet, but we have some of the goods we wanted to kind of show off.
Do we know when it's coming out?
Maybe this week. Maybe next week.
Maybe this
Love
week,
it.
probably
Right.
next week, or sometime like that. Sometime there.
Get in here, Lorenzo. You'll be the new Brad for this.
Hang on.
I'm stealing this pin.
You can, Lawrence, you can take it. You can take
Okay.
it. I just wanted to look.
I love Linkin Park pins. I don't know why, but we make the dopest pins. Dude, seriously,
I'm like,
we make
I can't even-
I was
I don't know
very
what I'm
much
doing right now.
chilling in the back there.
Peter crushed it.
All right, so here we go. Here's the LPU package that we're looking at.
Here's what I want to talk about too. Is
You might not be in the shot right there, Lorenzo.
it's
Come on.
okay. I don't have to
Come
be.
over here.
You're better than this.
I'm filming you guys
You're
too.
filming us and talking to us.
So this year we're going to offer 2 packages. We have the welcome bundle, and that comes with the T-shirt, the laminate, of course, the digital membership, and then the CD that has 10 awesome tracks that we'll talk about soon, and then a guitar pick, and the sticker,
super dope pin.
and an awesome welcome letter
If I can
that
find it.
Dave wrote. And then the deluxe edition comes with everything I just said, but also this awesome limited edition soccer scarf, the pin Chess has been talking about, and a
I'm leaving with it.
collegiate pennant, which we don't have to show you today, but I promise you it's awesome. So those are going to go on sale later this week or early next week. Stay tuned. We're going to make sure to make an announcement, but we wanted to take the opportunity today to show you guys the stuff since we're all here at the studio.
And keep in mind how special this letter is, because it's the only time Dave has actually used his hands to write anything in a very long time. For a very long time. And as you're in great shape, but I think this process made you realize that your writing muscles need to be worked on a little bit, because there's only like 100 and maybe 150, 200 words here.
It's shrunken, so it looks like less writing than actually happened.
It was double page.
Okay, all right. That's a decent.
Oh,
That's a
are
decent
we
essay.
telling
in
people what
middle-
the
in
track
middle
list
school.
is?
It's up to you. What do you think? Should we talk about one or two, maybe?
I'll tell you this. Like, so I since a lot of the tracks, like the demos and stuff that end up making these, like, you know, when we're making demos, you guys know, I'll come into the studio, or I'll come, you know, jump into like a hotel room on tour, have a little meeting, like, cool, like, these are the new songs that I'm working on, whatever, and we create a body of work, and then at some point, like, some of them become songs and other ones don't. And this LPU 16 CD, I wanted to kind of like give some of the ones that are like, okay, this is an early version of Bleed It Out, and I think that one has like different lyrics in the verses,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right. So the verses were different. I actually, like, when I wrote, if you remember, when I wrote the beginning of the song as it ended up on the album, Here We Go for the 100th Time, I wrote that because I had done so many verses.
We've literally written it almost 100 times.
rewritten the verses so many times. Well, this is one of the other ones that didn't make the cut.
It was number 84.
Yeah,
I
literally.
I have a really good memory.
Yeah. So this is not number 84, demo number 84.
It's also because he says, "Here we go for the 84th time."
Oh, yeah.
But also, if you look at some of the actual demo,
That looks nice.
like the year numbers, we have a demo from 2014, 3 from 2015 on here. So a bunch of these tracks are actually ones that were like steps along the way to get to the album we're currently working on, which is something we haven't done before, giving people like brand new demos. I don't think any of those have words, just so you set your expectations properly, but at least give you a sense of the like the soundscapes of what we've been up to.
Awesome. So, LPU 16 coming soon. Stay tuned on LinkinPark.com and Linkin Park on Facebook. Guys, anything else before we wrap it up today?
LP is the best.
And that's it.
What else is there to say after that?
That's
Will
true.
it focus if I get that close?
We
Is it
got a nod
focused?
from Christian.
Yeah.
Christian's got it.
Tight. Bye, guys.